Hello, I am back with a video of my summer reads. And if you know me, you know that I live in perpetual summer, okay? I live in a tropical country. However, summer is a state of mind, okay? And if I say that these are my summer reading lists, or this is my summer reading list, then this is my summer reading list, okay? Okay, let's just get right into it. The first book I read this summer is Recitative by Toni Morrison. I talked more about this in my last video, so you can go check that out. Recitative is just a short story by Morrison. It's one of the first Morrison books that I read. I would say that it is a good introduction to dip my toes into her writing. I think it was too short for me to really say that I liked it or disliked it, so I just kind of gave it a 3 stars, but it is an interesting story because Recitative follows the story of 2 girls who met at a young age. I don't remember if they met at an orphanage or a school. But yeah, these 2 girls met, and as the reader, we do not know about the color of these girls. One is black and one is white, and we as the reader are trying to figure out who is who. It really allows us to question our biases, our beliefs. Why do we think that this girl with the fat mother with a cross on her neck may be black or white? Why do we think that this girl with the name Twila might be black or white? It really, as a reader, it kind of allows us to question more about ourselves than about the characters themselves. So yeah, I really liked it. It was kind of a just a nice little book to get you thinking, but I don't think it was long enough for me to really feel anything, so I just gave it a 3 stars. Yeah, I just don't think short stories are for me. Moving on, I read A Woman Is No Man by Itaf Rum. I gave this one a 5 stars, okay? And I absolutely love this book. It is one of my new favorites. It follows 3 generations of Palestinian American immigrants. You guys know I love a good immigrant story. It follows the grandmother, the daughter, and then the granddaughter. And it talks about how their experiences as women are drastically different. So for example, in the grandmother's case, the role of a woman is simply to produce babies, and having a son is the main priority of a wife. A wife that can bear many sons can guarantee fortune in their future, can guarantee happiness within the family. So it really talks a lot about the grandmother's kind of origins to why she can even have those beliefs, and that trickles down to the generations after her, to the daughter and the granddaughter. And it really talks about how these cultural beliefs that are not really rooted in anything can really ruin people, ruin families. It is a heartbreaking story, and it's perfect for those who like Susan Abdul Hawa and for those who like Khalid Hosseini, because it's pretty similar themes. I will read you a quote that I really liked from this book. There were so many. I mean, I quoted God knows how many lines I quoted in this book. But one of the ones that really struck out to me was, for so many years, she had believed that if a woman was good enough, obedient enough, she might be worthy of a man's love. But now, reading her books, she was beginning to find a different kind of love, a love that came from inside her, one she felt when she was all alone, reading by the window. And through this love, she was beginning to believe for the first time in her life that maybe she was worthy after all. So one of the reasons why I find this quote so beautiful is because many times we are in a difficult situation in life. We may be depressed, we may be having a really tough time, and sometimes reading a book can really help you escape that. Sometimes reading a book can really help you reflect on what your values are, what your beliefs are. And I mean, even for me personally this year, I think a lot of the reading that I have done, even though they were novels, a lot of that reading has really helped me reflect on what I want in life and what I value as a person. Reading is also an escape from your horrible life. So that quote really resonated with me. So yeah, I honestly really love this book. The next book that I read is All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I gave this a 5 stars as well. It is another favorite of mine. Again, it is an intergenerational story of 3 different individuals. So a mother, her son, and his best friend. Mostly it's about these 2 characters, the girl and the boy. The mother kind of comes in towards the end. So these 2 best friends, they are the only 2 Pakistani immigrant children in a small town in America called Juniper. They became best friends, but over time a romance emerges and it kind of tears their friendship apart. This girl, Noor, is also really close to the guy's mom because she has lost her parents, or she had lost her parents at a really young age. She is taken care of by her uncle, who is both emotionally and physically abusive to her. So I love a good immigrant story, but I think I really resonated with Noor's story because in Noor's case, she was expected to kind of take over her uncle's store, but she is a really intelligent child who really wants to go to university and kind of explore what life has to offer outside of Juniper, but her uncle keeps putting barriers towards that. So I really liked, having to read about her life and what she had to do to kind of maneuver her uncle. And also it was so beautifully written because these 3 characters their lives have been irrevocably linked since these 2 kids were babies. Okay, their lives have always been intertwined. And the mother had felt that her whole life. She had known her whole life that her son and Noor would be best friends and that she sees Noor as her daughter. So it's just such a beautiful story. I think if you want to take one book away from this video, I think All My Rage would be the book to read. So let me look for one of the quotes that I really like in this book so that you guys can kind of get a gauge of what the writing is like and what they talk about. Hold on. Okay, so one of the quotes by Misbah, the mom: "How quickly a body can betray you. It will carry you your whole life, and suddenly, finished, it will carry your soul no longer." Chills reading that. There's so many quotes in this book. So yeah, honestly, really amazing quotes in here. Yeah. And then next I read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This is a widely loved book in the booktube community. But it wasn't for me. I gave it 2 stars because I couldn't really build a connection with the main character. Everything kind of just felt very surface level. It just didn't feel like the main character really deeply reflected on anything, and it kind of bothered me. I wish it was longer, but I also, it felt like it took me so long to read it because I was just so bored. It's not for me, but a lot of people loved it, so don't take my word for it. give it a go. You don't really lose anything. It's like 100 pages maybe or less. Then I read Such a Fun Age. I think this is like one of the first few books that I've ever added into my TBR when I first got Goodreads, and I gave this book a 2 stars. I absolutely hated it. First of all, I just want to say, so this book, Such a Fun Age, what I did like is that it does kind of talk about the struggle in your 20s, the struggle of figuring out what you want to do, the struggle of finances, the struggle of moving on from young adulthood to adulthood. It's tough. I'm going through it myself, so I understand. I get that. My main issue with the book is it felt like a white woman wrote these black characters, okay? And I have never, ever felt that way reading a book. I mean, of course, granted, I do read mostly POC authors, but I was shocked to find out that, what's her name? Kylie Reed, the author of this book, is a black woman. I was so shocked. The way that she would talk about these scenes, the lingo that she used, the jargons that she used just seemed so forced, almost as if like a middle-aged white woman was trying to depict what a black woman would speak like and act like and dress like. It was just so weird. But then I realized it might be because the author herself is a middle-aged woman, and maybe she just didn't know how to write young characters. I think it kind of became like they were caricatures of what a 25-year-old would behave like, you know? So no, I didn't like it, and it seemed it was really giving off scared white woman energy, specifically for the chapters talking about the white woman. I think it was really forcing it. I think it was really weird. It was like the whole, because she's a black babysitter, her employer is a white woman, and it was just very like forced. Like her boyfriend would be like, does she make you wear a uniform to work? And it was just really pushing this like idea that this babysitter had this kind of like slave and slave master dynamic. If you have read this book, please tell me your thoughts in the comments. It just felt very weird for me. I don't know. The next book I read is also another favorite. I had never heard of this book before. I saw it on my friend's TBR, and I don't know, I just wanted to read it because I like the title. The title is No Land to Light On by Yara Zghaib. I gave this book a 4 stars, okay? This book is poetry, prose, beautiful, eloquent, lyrical, okay? No Land to Light On follows the story of these 2 refugees from Syria, and they got married, and how their lives are forever changed when her husband goes back to Jordan to see his parents. I believe one of his parents had passed away, and during that time of his visit in Jordan, or during his flight back from Jordan to America, suddenly Trump enforces the travel ban, and the moment he got off the plane, he was obviously denied entry. And she's pregnant, his wife is pregnant, and yeah, it just talks about the difficulties of having that refugee status, and sometimes that refugee status cannot really protect you in situations like this. Technically, yes, he had a legal right to live and reside in the US, but because he had a Syrian passport, he was denied entry, treated as if he was a tourist, treated as if he didn't have a visa, so on and so forth. It was a tough read. It was a really tough read, and it just was so sad and beautiful. And yeah, it wasn't really that long either. Honestly, I liked that I just randomly saw it on somebody's TBR and decided to pick it up. So yeah, let me read you a quote from the book. She had come here to live. She had left Syria and left behind with its low ceilings to see, smell, taste new lands, words, spices, breads, and wines. She had come here to become. And I just thought that quote was really, really beautiful because there currently in the world, there's just this huge debate in a lot of Western countries that, you know, why don't the immigrants go back to where they belong? And it's like, I don't think, obviously this is like a very overly simplistic explanation. I know that people move there to live a better life and to make more money and to be able to provide for their families. But I also know, on the other hand, a lot of immigrants move because they're trying to find a better life. A lot of immigrants move because they're trying to find a place to belong. And I think that quote just beautifully encapsulates that. She came here to belong. Or no, she had come here to become. So yeah, beautiful. The next book that I read is another viral book, or like currently viral book, called The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I gave this a 3 stars, didn't like it, nothing special about it. It was really boring. I had to skim over through so many chapters. It was just giving, and I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, but this book was just giving white people problems. Yeah, this book is like written for the typical white American who has never left the country and doesn't know about anything else outside of their state type of vibe, if you catch my drift. They were not real people problems, you know what I mean? They were not immigrant problems, okay? They were not POC problems. They were white people problems. The main premise is good, okay? The main premise is how this woman, just recently divorced, hates her life and is going to this beautiful hotel to spend her last night here and then kill herself. That's great, no problem with that, okay? But then when she gets to the hotel, she realizes that everybody's here for a wedding, and the bride finds out that she is trying to kill herself, and the bride completely stops it, okay? And the bride is just this spoiled, bratty woman who doesn't really love her fiance, who doesn't really have any friends, who doesn't really have a good relationship with her parents or her family. She's just absolutely horrible to be around, abhorrent to be around, okay? And I didn't really like her, and I think she really ruined the novel. So yeah, but if you want to read it, go ahead. Next, I read a nonfiction book. This might be my first nonfiction this year. I don't know. I need to read more before the year ends. And this is also my first Salman Rushdie book, and it was a wonderful introduction to his writing style. I absolutely liked his writing style, and I will be reading more. It is titled Knife: Meditations After an Attempted Murder. And it's basically the story of how he was stabbed and how he had to kind of relearn how to do everything, relearn to, you know, walk and use his arms and use his hands and see, because his eye was also stabbed. He lost his eye. It's just kind of this whole story about that. And also it's a story about one of the reasons why he was stabbed is because Salman Rushdie is really hated by a lot of Islamic fundamentalists. And after many, many years, I believe it's like after 20 years of the initial, it's called a fatwa, the initial fatwa to like, and a fatwa is basically like a order, I guess. I don't really know. But after the initial order to harm and kill him, 20 years later, he was actually harmed and somebody had attempted to kill him. So I think it was just him kind of talking about how, like, after all this time, I no longer go out with security guards. I no longer feel fear. I have a beautiful and happy life. Now somebody decides that they want to stab me. And so I think it's just kind of like him processing everything. And he said it himself. He's like, I don't think I can move on unless I write about it. And that's why I wrote this book. But one thing that was really interesting for me when I did read this book is, so his initial fatwa or order to be killed, it started off from the controversy that happened after he wrote his book titled The Satanic Verses that really offended a lot of people. So I didn't know this, and the reason why I probably don't know this is because I'm probably too young, but he says in the book, one of the benefits of the passage of time is that by now there are many younger readers who can approach the Satanic Verses as a plain old novel and not some sort of theological hot potato. And it's me. I am one of those young readers that will be approaching the Satanic Verses like it is simply a book and not like it is a theological hot potato that needs to be debated on. So yeah, it's funny because the Satanic Verses was already on my TBR anyway, just because like the title, the Satanic Verses, how would you not want to read a book titled that way, you know? So yeah, pretty good book for a memoir. I would say I gave it a 4 stars. I liked it, and yeah, it's just really interestingly written. Next, I read Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. I gave this I believe it was like a 3.5 stars or a 3 stars. And here's the thing, I have never read anything by Shakespeare, so I don't actually know what Macbeth is about. I don't even know about the real Macbeth. I came into this book completely blind, and I liked it. It was very dark. I think that you would call this a gothic book. I think, I'm not sure. I liked it. I liked that there were a little bit of fantasy elements, a little bit of magical elements. However, maybe this is because I didn't read the original Macbeth. I don't really understand why Lady Macbeth was married off to Macbeth. That's number 1. Number 2 is, I don't even remember what I said about this. Number 2 is, yeah, I don't even remember much about this, the ending of this book, and I think maybe that says a lot about why I gave it a 3 stars. The next book I read is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This is my first Frederick Backman book, and I wanted to read this first before I ever read Beartown. I just kind of wanted to dip my toes, see what his writing was like, and I do like his writing. This is a short story between a grandfather and his grandson, so it's very interesting because it is told in, let me see if I'm using this word correctly. I think it is told in vignettes. Yeah, I think it's written in like specific vignettes about this grandfather and his grandson. This grandfather, I believe, has some form of dementia, so he is kind of forgetting his grandson, and at some point he confuses his grandson with his own son, and at some point his grandson has then become an adult. I'm not quite sure, but it's really interestingly written because you can really, you kind of feel like you are in the mind of a person with dementia in terms of like that forgetfulness. It's written in like very short paragraphs, very short chapters. So yeah, it was quite sad. It was really well written, but I think it was too short for me to even give it a rating. It was too short for me to feel very deeply about it, and that's like, I think I'm just starting to realize that I'm not really a short story person. Like I said about Claire Keegan's book, Small Things Like These, I haven't really found a short story that I liked yet so far. Same case with Toni Morrison's Recitative. But yeah, I think it's just a really touching story because it's between grandfather and grandson, so yeah. And then lastly, I read Homegoing by Iya Gyasi. Okay, and I gave this 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars because the writing was really, really well done. It follows the story of these two girls in Ghana back in the 1700s, and every single chapter follows a generation that comes after those two women. Now, one part of the lineage, they are slaves. They become slaves and are enslaved, and it's about the transatlantic slave trade to America. The other lineage follows this woman in Ghana who marries a British man at the time. I'm not sure if that would be considered a colonizer, but yeah, one of the slavers, the merchants. She marries him, and they have obviously mixed babies, and it is about how their lineage, you know, how their kids kind of traverse through a life or the world in Ghana at the time being of mixed race. I honestly could not, I had to DNF by the end of part 1. So part 1 is like halfway through the book. I didn't really go to part 2. And the reason why is because I was really, really immersed when they were talking about the chapters in Ghana. But once they got to the chapters in America, I just was kind of bored. I didn't really like the chapters about them being enslaved. I didn't like reading about it. It didn't make me comfortable. And I understand it is meant to be a difficult topic, so I think I would recommend it if you are interested in reading about that. Yeah, but I gave it 3.5 stars because the writing was really immersive, to the point that I could actually imagine what life would have been like in a Ghanaian village in the 1700s. Like it was that immersive and really well written. So yeah, so far that's all I have for my summer reading. We're moving on to the next season now. I have another set of really great books that I will be planning to read in the last quarter of the year. If any of you guys are interested in hearing about me talk about my TBR, let me know. And if you got to the end of the video, please leave a bird, a white dove emoji for No Land to Lie On, because that was my favorite book so far out of this whole list. It's like the most unique book. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching this video. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!